First the line and the octagon, then the Dubai circle, now a giant cube. Earlier this month, Saudi Arabia announced its latest project, the Mukaab. It's a cube so big that it could fit 20 Empire State Buildings inside of it. Saudi Arabia described it as a gateway to another world, with a holographic dome that transports its visitors to other planets and magical worlds. But is this just a viral marketing stunt? Or will the Mukaab actually be built? And if so, when would it open to the public? In this video, we'll look at everything we know so far. Saudi Arabia is a rich country in the Middle East that has a lot of oil. But they want to use less oil. So they're starting big projects to change their economy. One of the biggest projects is called NEOM, and it costs a lot of money. $1 trillion. NEOM will have a long city, a floating city, and a big ski resort in the desert. They've already talked about NEOM before, but now there are new updates. In January, the boss of NEOM said they finished 20% of the city's stuff. They made a video that said NEOM is real and showed big construction sites for the city. Saudi Arabia is also working with big companies like Oracle and Nvidia to use AI in NEOM. And there's a new project called New Murabba. This cube is part of Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 plan. NEOM has been getting a lot of attention recently, but Saudi Arabia doesn't want to forget about its other big cities. That's why they're building New Murabba in Riyadh, which is the capital of Saudi Arabia. Riyadh has been growing really fast. 50 years ago, it was a small town with fewer than 500,000 people. Now it has more than 7 million people and is the third largest city in the Middle East. The Saudi Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, says the New Murabba project will become the world's biggest modern downtown area. This new part of the city will have over 80 places for entertainment, many walking paths, a big museum, and at the center of it all, there will be a huge building called the Cube, or Mukaab in Arabic. Building enormous geometric shapes seems to be a theme for Saudi Arabia's big projects, like the line and the octagon. The Mukaab will be the new face of Riyadh. Its outside design is inspired by a traditional Saudi style called Najdi architecture, which has been used for hundreds of years. The building will shine in the sunlight and be the most prominent thing in Riyadh's skyline. The size of this cube is mind-boggling. It will be 400 meters tall, making it technically a super tall skyscraper. If it were in Dubai, it would be the 4th tallest building there. But what's even more impressive is that it's also 400 meters wide, so it will completely dominate the skyline. To give you an idea, you could fit 20 Empire State Buildings inside the Mukaab. It would be much bigger than other cube-shaped buildings in the world. For example, the Berlin Cube in Germany is a cool-looking office building, but it's only 40 meters tall. You could fit 1,000 of those inside the Mukaab. In terms of sheer size, this cube could become the largest structure on Earth, even bigger than the Boeing Everett factory in Washington, which currently holds the record. In fact, the Boeing factory could fit inside the Mukaab almost 5 times. But what will we do with all this space? When you step into the Mukaab cube, it will feel like going to a completely different place. There will be a huge dome over you that shows different pretend worlds with special pictures. These pictures will make you feel like you're in a different world. One moment you might be under the sea, and the next you could be on Mars or in a make-believe magic land. It's supposed to be a really cool experience that you've never seen before. In the middle of the dome, there will be a tall tower that looks a bit like an anthill or some weird fungus. It goes from the ground all the way up to the roof. This tower will be a fancy place for people from all over the world to visit. It will have restaurants, hotel rooms, places to see things, and even movie theaters. The tower and the dome will be surrounded by a big cube. In the corners of the cube, There will be tall buildings like skyscrapers with lots of stuff in them. And even the top part of the cube will be used, with lakes, grass, and trees. Whether it's a good idea to put a lake up there, or if it's even possible, is another question. If you like this video so far, please support us by subscribing to our channel. Now let's talk about why the Mukaab is shaped like a cube. The people who designed the Mukaab believe that a cube shape is the best way to fit all the fancy technology that will make the whole experience great. They haven't told us exactly how they plan to show us virtual worlds, but they'll put the tech stuff in the space between the bell jar dome and the outer cube. They'll also need strong support-like beams to hold up the gardens on top of the cube. There are tall towers at each corner of the cube to help with support, but we're not sure if that's enough to hold up the world's largest roof and the garden on top. The cube shape is also meant to make Mukaab really famous. It will be like how the Eiffel Tower is known all over the world for Paris, or the Statue of Liberty is famous for New York. When people see a picture of the cube, they will instantly think of Riyadh, making the city stand out among other big cities in the world. However, some people have criticized the shape of the building. They say it looks a bit like the Kaaba in Mecca, a very important place for Muslims. When Muslims pray, they face towards the Kaaba no matter where they are in the world. But others don't think the two buildings look alike. They mention that there are other cube-shaped buildings, like the Berlin Cube in Germany, and nobody said it looked like the Kaaba. These people also think it's unlikely that the Saudi leaders, who are Muslim, would purposely build something that could offend others, so the resemblance is probably just a coincidence. Overall, many people are excited and curious about the Mukaab project. But they all wonder the same thing. Will they actually build the Mukaab? Construction hasn't started yet, but it's supposed to begin in a few months. Saudi Arabia promised that the project will be open to the public in 2030, just like their other Vision 2030 projects, such as the Line, the Octagon, and Trojena. Compared to the Line, this project might be easier to do. However, it would still be the biggest project ever made. That's why it's so hard to know what will happen. So let's look at 3 different possibilities. The first possible scenario, which Saudi Arabia would probably like the most, is that they start building the cube in the next few months, and it's done by 2030, just like they said. Riyadh would have a new landmark, and more tourists from around the world would visit, making it a top destination. But this might be too good to be true, because there are many challenges. This leads us to the second scenario. Financial experts doubt if there's enough money for this big project. Dr. Andreas Krieg, who knows a lot about the Middle East, said, "They haven't figured out the money yet." When CNN asked the Public Investment Fund how they'd pay for it, they didn't have an answer, but said they'd tell us more soon. Saudi Arabia hopes to get more than $100 billion per year by 2030, and that could help pay for projects like this. But they're not close to that amount yet, and it's not certain if they can get enough foreign investors interested. Also, Vision 2030 was criticized for human rights issues by Amnesty International, which might make foreign investors hesitant to get involved. Even if Saudi Arabia can gather enough money, there's a big question. Can they actually make this enormous project work with the technology we have today? Holograms like the one they talk about in Mukaab's announcement don't exist yet. Some fancy companies like Lightfield Lab have made some progress lately, but making holograms as huge as Mukaab's dome is still like something you'd see in a sci-fi movie. They might be able to do something similar with giant LED screens, like what they're using in the MSG Sphere, a huge project in Las Vegas that's set to open soon. It's a massive sphere with a giant screen inside that's about the size of 3 football fields. It's meant to take people to cool new worlds, just like Mukaab wants to do. But here's the catch. Mukaab's screen would need to be at least 20 times bigger than the MSG spheres, and it's not clear if we can even build a screen that big. And then there's that massive lake they want to put on top of the cube. It would put a lot of stress on the cube's structure and needs to be completely waterproof. If it ever leaks, it could ruin all the expensive technology below it. So this cube project is already facing some really big problems. If they can't find the money or the right technology, it might never even get finished. But there's another possibility. The cube might eventually get built, but not as big or grand as planned. It could be made smaller, like 200 meters or even just 100 meters. Even at 100 meters, it would still be the world's largest cube-shaped building and quite impressive. It won't be as great as the original plan, but it's better than nothing. We can't predict the future, but one thing's certain: the next few years will be interesting. In 2030, the Mukaab, the Line, and other big projects might open to the public, or they might never finish. What do you think? Share your thoughts below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.